And for TV 100, Happy Black History Month. We are on installment number 14 of the narrative of the life of Frederick Douglass, an American slave written by himself. Please hit the like button, hit the notification bell, and please subscribe if you haven't already. You won't regret it. And please share these videos. Okay, so we are into installment 14. We are just coming so close to the end. We have only a couple more chapters left. And so on chapter or episode 13, the slaves are getting together. Frederick Douglass, he is organizing the slaves, and they are trying to get the confidence to run away and to escape. They are trying to get the confidence to run to freedom, to be free. Inform TV 100, Happy Black History Month. In coming to a firm decision to run away, we did more than Patrick Henry when he said, "Give me liberty or give me death." With us, it was a doubtful liberty at most, and almost certain death if we failed. But for my part, I preferred death to hopeless bondage. One of us, Sandy, gave up the idea of running away, but still encouraged us. Our group then consisted of Henry Harris, John Harris, Henry Bailey, Charles Roberts, and myself. Henry Bailey was my uncle and belonged to Thomas Auld. Charles had married my aunt. He belonged to my master's father-in-law, William Hamilton. The plan we finally decided on was this. We would get a large canoe belonging to Hamilton, and on the Saturday night before Easter, paddle directly up the Chesapeake Bay. When we reached the head of the bay, 70 or 80 miles from where we lived, we planned to abandon the canoe. We would then walk, following the guidance of the North Star, until we got beyond the limits of Maryland. Traveling by water, we reasoned, we would look less like runaways than like fishermen. If we should travel by land, we would be questioned every step of the way. Anyone having a white face could stop us and demand that we explain ourselves. The week before our intended start, I wrote several documents, one for each of us, as well as I can remember. They read like this. This is to certify that I, the undersigned, have given the bearer, my servant, full liberty to go to Baltimore to spend the Easter holiday, written with my own hand this day in 1835. William Hamilton, near St. Michael's, Talbot County, Maryland. We were not going to Baltimore, but in going up the bay, we went towards Baltimore. At the time approached for our departure, our anxiety became more and more intense. It was truly a matter of life and death for us at this time. I was very active in explaining every difficulty, removing every doubt, and calming every fear. I assured my friends that the battle was half won. The instant we made the move, we had talked long enough. We were now ready for action. If we were not ready now, we never would be. And if we did not move now, we might as well sit down and admit we were only fit to be slaves. And this, none of us were prepared to acknowledge. Every man stood firm. As our last meeting, we pledged in the most solemn manner that at the appointed time, we would certainly start in pursuit of freedom. This was in the middle of the week, and we were to leave Saturday night. We went as usual to our different workplaces, our minds reeling with thoughts of our hazardous undertaking. We tried to conceal our feelings as much as possible, and I think we succeeded very well. After a painful waiting, Saturday morning came. I greeted it with joy. No matter what sadness it might bring, Friday night had been a sleepless one for me. I probably felt more anxious than the rest because I was considered the leader of the whole affair. The responsibility of success or failure lay heavily upon me. The first 2 hours that morning were such as I never experienced before and hope never to again. Early in the morning, we went as usual to the field. We were spreading manure. All at once, I worked. As I worked, I was overwhelmed with an indescribable feeling. I turned to Sandy, who was nearby, and said, "We are betrayed." I just had the same thought, he said. We said no more. I was never more certain of anything. The horn was blown as usual, and we went up to the house for breakfast. Just as I got the house, I saw 4 white men and 2 colored men in the lane. The white men were on horseback, and the colored ones were walking behind, as if tied. I watched them a few minutes until they reached our lane gate. Here they stopped and tied the colored men to the gate post. In a few moments, in rode Hamilton, looking highly excited. He asked if Freeland was in and rode up to the barn with extraordinary speed to find him. In a few minutes, he and Freeland returned to the house. By this time, the 3 local police officers arrived. After taking a while, they all walked up to the kitchen door. There was no one in the kitchen but myself and John. Henry and Sandy were up at the barn. Freeland called me, saying there were some gentlemen at the door who wished to see me. I stepped to the door and asked what they wanted. They instantly seized me, tying my hands. I insisted upon knowing what was the matter. They finally said they had learned I had been in a scrap and that I was to be questioned before my master. If their information proved false, they said I should not be hurt. In a few moments, they succeeded in tying John. They then turned to Henry, who had by this time returned, and commanded him to cross his hands. "I won't," said Henry. "Won't you?" One law officer said. "No, I won't," said Henry in a still stronger voice. With this, 2 of the officers pulled out their shining pistol and swore that they would make him cross his hands or kill him. Each one cocked his pistol. With fingers on the trigger, they walked up to Henry, saying that if he did not cross his hands, they would blow his damn heart out. Shoot me," said Henry. "You can't kill me but once. Shoot me, shoot me. You can't kill me. He damned. I won't be tied." Then he said in a tone of loud defiance at the same time, with a motion as quick as lightning, he struck the pistol from the hand of each officer. Officer fell upon him. After bearing him, After beating him, they finally overpowered him and got him tied. During the scuffle, I managed to get my forged pass out and put it in the fire. We were all now tied, and just as we were to leave for Easton Jail, Freeland's mother came to the door with her hands full of biscuits. She divided them between Henry and John and then spoke to me, saying, "You devil, you yellow devil, it was you that put it into the heads of Henry and John to run away. If it wasn't for you, you long-legged mulatto devil, Henry and John would never have thought of such a thing." I did not answer and was immediately hurried off towards St. Michael's. A moment before the scuffle with Henry, Hamilton had suggested that we be searched for the forged papers he understood I had written. But just before the search could take place, His help was needed in helping to tie Henry. In the excitement of the next few moments, they either forgot to search us or decided it was unsafe to do so. So, yeah, they had no proof against us. When we got about halfway up to St. Michael's, Henry managed to quietly ask me what he should do with this pass. I told him to eat it with this biscuit and to admit nothing. We passed the word around, admitting nothing. Our confidence in each other was unshaken. We had decided to succeed or fail together, and after this calamity, we felt the same. We were now prepared for anything. When we reached St. Michael, we underwent a sort of examination. We all denied that we ever intended to run away. We did this more to bring out the evidence against us than from the hope of being believed. We learned that the evidence against us came from one person. One master would not tell us who it was, but we felt certain that we knew. We were sent off to jail at Easton, where we were put into the sheriff's hands. Henry, John, and I were placed in one room together, and Charles and Henry Bailey in another. We had been in jail scarcely 20 minutes when a swarm of slaves traders flocked in to look at us. Such a set of beings I never saw before. I felt I was surrounded by so many fiends from hell. They laughed and grinned at us, saying, "Ah, my boys, we have got you, haven't we?" After taunting us, they began to examine us, trying to determine our value. They rudely laughed at us, asking if we would not like to have them for our masters. We would not answer them. Then they cursed and swore at us, telling us that they could take the devil out of us in a very little while if we were only in their hands. Jail was more comfortable than we expected. We did not get to eat, nor was the food very good. But we had a good, clean room. We could see out the window into the streets. Upon the whole, we got along very well so far at the jail and its keeper were concerned. Immediately after Easter, to our surprise, Hamilton and Freeland came up to Easton and took Charles, the two Henrys, and John out of jail and went home with them, leaving me alone. This separation caused me some more pain than anything else in the world in the whole episode. I suppose that Hamilton and Freeland had talked together and had decided that as I was the ringleader, they would take the others home to sell me as a warning to those that remained. I was now left to my fate. I was all alone and within the walls of a stone prison. Only a few days before I was full of hope. I expected to have been safe in a land of freedom, but now I was sunk down at the utmost despair. I thought the possibility of freedom was gone. I kept in this way about a week, but at the end of that time, to my utter astonishment, Thomas Auld arrived and took me out. He intended to send me to Alabama with a gentleman he knew, but for some reason he did not send me to Alabama. He decided instead to send me back to Baltimore to live again with his brother Hugh and to learn a trade. Thus, after an absence of 3 years and 1 month, I once more returned to my old home in Baltimore. Huard hired me out to Mr. William Gardner, a shipbuilder on Fells Point. I was put there to learn how to caulk, in other words, to seal up the seams between a ship's timbers. However, it, it proved a very bad time and place for me to learn a trade. Gardner was engaged that spring in building two large man of war brigs for the Mexican government. The vessels were to be launched in July of that year. If he missed that deadline, Gardner would lose a considerable sum of money, and so when I arrived, all was hurry. There was no time to learn anything. Every man had to do that which he knew how to do. When I entered the shipyard, my orders from Gardner were to do whatever the carpenter commanded. This meant I was at the beck and call of about 75 men. They were all my masters. Their word was to be my law. My situation was more difficult. At times I needed a dozen pair of hands. Three or four voices would strike my ear at the same time. It was Fred. Come here. Help me here. Fred came carrying the timber yonder. Fred bringing that roller here. Fred, go get a fresh can of water. Fred, come help saw off the end of this timber. Fred, go quick, get the crowbar. Fred, Fred, Fred. He continued to make demands. Go to the black man's shop and get a new punch. Henry, Fred, run in and bring me a cold chisel. Hey, nigger, come turn this grindstone. Blast you, darky. Why don't you heat up some pitch? Come here, go there, hold on where you are. Damn you. If you move, I'll knock your brains out. Gardner's shipyard was my school for 8 months. I might have remained there longer, except for a terrible fight I had with four of the white apprentices, in which my left eye was nearly knocked out. This was how it happened. Until soon after I went there, white and black carpenters worked side by side, and no one seemed to have any problem with that. Many of the black carpenters were free men. Things seemed to be going on very well, but all at once the white carpenters laid down their tools and said they would not work with free colored workmen. Their reason, they said, was that if free colored carpenters were encouraged, they would soon take the trade into their own hands. Isn't that something? And poor white men would be thrown out of employment, taking advantage of Gardner's need for fast progress. They broke off, swearing they would work no longer unless he fires the black carpenters. Now, although I was not a free carpenter, the white carpenters' talk did have its effect on me. My fellow apprentices began to feel it was degrading to work with me. They began to put on airs, talked about the niggers taking over the country, and said we all ought to be killed. Encouraged by the carpenters, they made my conditions so hard as they could, tormenting me constantly and sometimes striking me. I of course, kept the vow I made after the fight with Covey and struck back regardless of the consequences. As long as I could fight them separately, I did very well, for I could whip any of them. However, they eventually joined forces and came upon me armed with sticks, stones, and heavy handpipes. One came in front with a half brick. There was one at each side of me and one behind me. The one behind me ran up with a spike and stuck me a heavy blow upon the head. It stunned me. I fell, and they were all on me at once, beating me with their fists. I gathered my strength and rose to my hands and knees. But just then, one of them, wearing heavy boots, gave me a powerful kick in the left eye. My eyeballs seemed to have burst. When they saw my eye closed and badly swollen, they left me. I seized the hand spike and ran after them, but here the carpenters interfered, and I thought I might as well give it up. It was impossible to fight against so many. At this All this took place in sight of no less than 50 white ship carpenters, and not one tried to help. In fact, some cried, "Kill the damn nigger, kill him, kill him." He struck a white person. My only chance for life was in running. I managed to get away without further injury. but barely so. For to strike a white man is to invite death by lynching. That was the law in Gardner Shipyard and in many places outside Gardner Shipyard. I went directly home and told Hugh all what had happened. He was far more sympathetic than his brother. Thomas had been under similar circumstances. He listened carefully and expressed indignation. Enraged, he cursed above those who had done the deed. My puffy eye and blood covered face moved Sophia all to tears. She sat down next to me, washed the blood from my face, and with a mother's tenderness bound my head, covering my wounded eye. This is Inform TV 100. This is the end of this series, and we will be moving on. We will be finishing this book today. God bless you. Take care of yourself. Get your tests. Know your numbers. God bless you. Happy Black History Month. Bye.